Well, hello, folks. Okay, so I'm going to continue with this manufacturing social breakdown for social control. Um, there's a big literature on this, academic and articles everywhere, books everywhere. And it's something to familiarize yourself with if you're not already familiar with it. But I think most people are familiar with Stockholm syndrome, for example, where, let's say, real terrorists, really bad people, uh, kidnap you and hold you hostage. And then after a while, just from proximity to them and having a form of a relationship with them in your captivity, you start to identify with them and sympathize with them and so on. So you hear all the time about people who are murderers and serial killers and they're getting fan mail and they have lots of suitors, people trying to become their boyfriend or girlfriend on the outside and all that kind of thing. I think to a certain degree we're all captive of our culture, like I said last time. Culture is cultish in a sense. We take for granted what we learn and so on. There's this breakdown between rationalism, like Leibniz or Leibniz. How do you say Leibniz? That's what I always say anyway. And Descartes and people like that, and Kant trying to synthesize it. I don't know if you read Kant, but he's really interesting. Kant, I like to say, all the time that, the bold print giveth and the small print taketh away. It's like, here, we can do this, but not the way you think. It's not that simple. But trying to bridge or put together empiricism, experimental science with all of its tools, mathematics, um, logic and all that, with metaphysics, with just thinking about all possible experiences that you can't have, imagination and transcendental experiences in a sense, uh, and thinking about them, the meta of thinking. But anyway, metaphysics is very interesting. But this is, this be, becoming broken down psychologically through information and the meme space and propaganda and all that kind of stuff. It's a real science. People who are good at it are really good at it. And all of us are vulnerable to it. It doesn't matter how rational you are, how scientific you are, how mathematical you are. Uh, we're all vulnerable to it. We're just human beings. And we tend to be very hubristic and we overestimate our intelligence, Dunning-Kruger and all that kind of thing. And we're overconfident that our beliefs are true in some sense, however you want to frame the truth. But again, I'm looking at things from the frame of natural science, understanding how nature works, and our embeddedness within nature, within the ecosystem and the habitat as animals. So again, it's like cotton and people like that, uh, ecologists and bioscientists and people who have looked into these things. But you can go way, way back and just imagine, a more indigenous type of people, whether they were pastoralists or hunter gatherers or whatever. Uh, the generations, countless generations of experience they had within their habitat, their ecosystem, and also, our species, Homo sapiens sapiens, have been migrating around the planet for a long time, 75,000 years or so, in and out of Africa, all over the place. learning how to take advantage of various habitats and ecosystems, what to hunt, what to eat, how to live, exhausting resources along the way, and eventually scaling up because we learned how to store food, energy, and put a yoke on an ox, and use mules and horses, and growing more food and scaling up until we hit civilization, and then it was just this never-ending, unlimited plain. I think that's what some people refer to it as, illimitable plain. Just like this constant area that we can expand out into and take advantage of forever and ever. Once we exhaust one island, we can move on to the next. There's a lot of literature on that as well. And, overshooting the natural resources in a given area. And then from an accelerationist TESCREAL perspective, you're talking about going out into the universe forever. You have this machine that harnesses energy from Dyson spheres or whatever sci-fi stories you want to think about, and has unlimited energy, and it's a machine and it can repair itself, and it just goes out into the universe just using up stuff. More minerals, more stuff. General artificial intelligent machines just running around, and the whole universe, the whole Milky Way is just a thing to be harvested to keep the machine going. And that's fun to think about, and sci-fi stories are really cool that engage with that kind of scenario. But the chances of it happening are practically nil. It's like you could say, what are all the possible experiences that a human being could have? Well, it's not going to be that one, because if we get to that stage of culture, we're dead. There's no reason to think that the Borg machine is going to keep Homo sapiens sapien animals around as pets, right? We keep pigs and chickens and cows around for food, but I don't think they're going to be eating us, because they'll be machines, right? They just need some form of energy to power their computers. Keep going. Anyway, whatever. It's not going to happen. More likely, we're going to experience steady overshoot until resource depletion and extinction event. The sixth extinction just hits tipping points and just, eventually destroy human habitat. We can't live as animals on the planet anymore. We go extinct, and that's the end of it. Okay, whatever. In the meantime, I got to get rich, and I've got to become famous. People who talk about these things, the really good ones, like Tom Murphy or somebody, they get 100 or so likes, and they have an audience of a few thousand. And Chuck Schumer puts up a video talking about politics in the States, which is practically brain dead. I mean, it just chugs along, but nothing ever really gets done. They're just cycles, progressive cycles lead to conservatives. There's just a constant battle between these factions. It's all social constructs fighting it out. But he gets 66,000 views, and tens of thousands of likes and so on and so forth. And, you're just listening to this politician talk about another politician. Cory Booker, I forgot his last name. He supposedly talked in Congress recently for 25 hours about the state of affairs with Trump and all that. Well, the time to start talking about that was like years ago, before Kamala Harris was the Democratic candidate. I mean, nothing ever changes there, and the likelihood that we're going to start being animistic hunter-gatherers by choice, very unlikely, or having some Daniel Schmachtenberger come to Jesus uh, moment, or Damascus, on the way to Damascus moment, where we're going to say, oh, we got all these things we really need to do to make things work out and be non-rivalrous, and take into consideration all the things that we're ignoring and whatnot. The chances that people do that are practically nil. There's going to be people like me who find it interesting. A lot more people, his way of speaking is going to go right over their head, and they're going to go right back to hating on certain people and loving on other people, and preying on it and getting on with paying off the bills and whatnot. There's an exodus of people leaving Florida. Oh, the housing prices go down. Now I can rent a house in Florida for only $3,000 a month, whatever it is. Meanwhile, all the other uh, unsustainable practices of civilized Homo sapiens sapiens chugs along until the breaking point. And who knows when that'll be. But I have a feeling it's going to be pretty rough. But in the meantime, we have to fight. We have to have these rivalrous confrontations with China and Russia and the BRICS and Iran and all our enemies. Because God knows there's no way we can figure out how to cooperate with them and collaborate with them and make friends with them and so on and so forth. That wouldn't be possible. If we did that, we'd be endangering the white race. Really, if you're a white supremacist, or you're worried about Christians being oppressed or something, why don't you think about the world in terms of human supremacy? Kill it all. Instead of kill all the brutes, it's like kill everything. Use it all up as fast as we can until there's nothing left to keep us alive. And then just spend a couple of decades or generations whimpering out until the last person standing starves to death. Yeah. So I want to continue with this series about the psychological breakdown. So in step one, I talked about devaluation and breakdown of people. And you use criticism and blame. You use isolation, techniques of isolation, to reduce external validation and so on of people's experiences. Humiliation and degradation. You mock people, you humiliate people, you make them feel worthless. And then gaslighting, we all know what that is. You deny people's experiences and memories and make them feel like they're crazy, make them confused and make them question their own judgment. Creating chaos and instability, erratic behavior, unpredictable reactions, creating unnecessary drama, keeping the person off balance and anxious. These are like 101 art of the deal stuff with Donald Trump, right? They just don't know what I'm going to say from 1 minute to the next. I'm such a fucking genius. Everybody's off balance. It's like, it just makes opponents who are good at game theory think, well, fuck it. I don't know what the guy's going to do, so I'm just going to continue with my strategy and buckle down, keep my nose to the grindstone, and wear this guy out, because he'll probably pass away in office or be gone, and some other moron will take his place. So why the hell would I even play with these people? I think eventually the United States of Americans is going to isolate itself so much from the world that it's just going to be stuck in its own little culture war craziness for a while, until it just breaks apart and balkanizes. Who knows? But anyway, America's super rich, a lot of football stadiums, a lot of baseball stadiums, a lot of stadiums, a lot of entertainment, a lot of beautiful places to go, some energy, some copper in the ground. But the low-hanging fruit is gone, people. It's gone. So it's going to be more expensive to extract all the minerals and materials we need for all our stuff, for all your jobs. So he's going to fire you, and then you're going to be, retrained as computer chip designers or something like that, You're going to go from whatever service job at Taco Bell you had to something else, or some job for the federal government or a state government or whatever. It's a grift. What they're doing basically is sorting things out so that they can take as much as they can for themselves. And what I mean by them, they are the oligarchs and the plutocrats and the assholes and their service providers, the lawyers and the suits and the accountants and the consultants who maintain this system that we call, neoliberal capitalism. Oh, it's all neoliberal capitalism's fault. No, it's our fault. We're stupid animals. We're not wise animals. We come up with these dumb systems that are obviously unsustainable. And we get all excited because we have all these diversions and distractions and addictions and things to do. And so we just say, oh, it's all good, man. You can't believe it, how great it is. And maybe it is for the moment. That's fine. If it is for you, man, be happy, get another bottle of champagne, do a bump and go party hardy, whatever works. But it seems like a lot of people around the world have a lot of complaints, and I don't think Belgians and Germans and Dutch people and Danish people and Norwegians and Finns and Swedes and Brits and Spanish and Portuguese people and Italians are very excited about like another world war. You think about 75 to 85 million people dead, half of them civilians. The incredible price that Soviet Union, had to pay in the Second World War. 26 million people killed, dead, massacres. I mean, the Nazis would have wiped out the Slavic people if they could. They wanted all that Caspian gas and whatever it is. And, they were hell bent on just wiping people out, genociding people. But that was a huge price to pay. And you think about the slog, how long it took to beat back an already broken German army on the Eastern Front while the Allies are invading the Western Front. And the Germans were stubborn, hard fighting, complete fanatics. Even during the last few days of the war or something, I think it was like 100,000 German deaths because they just wouldn't give up in certain places, in Czechoslovakia and other regions, Austria and so on. They're kind of holding out. And of course, Berlin fought like crazy, even though they were surrounded and just being pummeled by the Soviet army, the Red Army. I mean, it's madness, And you think people would, like Curtis May, let's bomb them into the Stone Age. Let's make a parking lot out of the damn place. And people would throw up their hands and say, I surrender. But they don't. They just dig in. And they say, fuck that. If they're going to bomb us, we're going to hang tough, Just like in the Middle East, you can spend all the money and materials and oil and gas and flight fuel you want, bombing the hell out of poor people. And at the end of the day, it's never going to be enough, and it's not going to Americanize the Middle East very well, and you have to think that these are different cultures and they might not want to be like you, maybe they have a different way of life that they kind of are attached to, right? Make more refugees, make more lunatics, people who are suffering from PTSD and so on. Every day you see the news in the States is people are pissed off and they're shooting somebody. And it's just like, can't you get your own affairs in order? Instead, we're going to break everybody down with deprivation, making sure that they don't have enough. You want people to just be able to get by. But you don't want them to have too much power because they might push back on your power. In the 60s, from 63 to 75 or whatever, that was a rough period in the States. There was lots of violence on campus. People were getting killed. There were bombings. It was a rough world, man. Assassinations and so on. It was far from ideal for many people. All these movements happening, student movements and civil rights and whatever, and labor movements, and all being very violently pushed back on. And, it's like they don't want people power. They hate democracy, generally speaking. People in power, people in control. They just want to keep their power, control, and status. Call it what you will. We have many words for it. Authoritarianism. We have dictatorships. We have, military coups. We have all these different things. But it's the basic idea is like if I give you too much power, you're going to want more because that's the way people are. And then I'm not going to be able to control you anymore. And I'm not going to be able to maintain the grift. I'm not going to be able to rob you blind. Um, in a world where we don't have any sense of respect or sacredness towards nature itself, we certainly don't give a fuck about each other, only insofar as we can use each other. We may think we're compassionate and moral and ethical, but how far does that extend? To your dog, to your son? Does it extend beyond anything? Can you live and let live? Can you continue to collaborate with people in Vietnam, in Thailand, in China, around the world to hopefully solve some of our problems and come up with a way of life that might be sustainable and embedded in nature? Yeah. Stop your pipe dreaming, Stephen. Stop it. Anyway, the next thing is the psychological impact of the breakdown phase. So that's 21 minutes. Oops, sorry, went off again. So the psychological impact of the breakdown phase, okay? I'll just read off the notes to get through this. Erosion of self-esteem. Constant criticism and devaluation lead to a diminished sense of self-worth. Increased anxiety and fear. The unpredictable and hostile environment creates chronic stress and anxiety, okay? And, people start to feel this way, and then they don't want to look at anything. Nothing I can do about it, so I'm just going to ignore everything because I'm already freaked out enough. And you see that all the time. And just the cortisol, the disease, the problems it causes people. This is kind of like a metabolic disease of the mind and the soul. Confusion and self-doubt. So gaslighting makes the person question their own sanity and reality. So suddenly you're like, I have this from time to time because here I am going on and on about this stuff. And I think sometime, I must be nuts. Maybe people are right. Maybe I should be like isolated and, forgotten and derided, made fun of, because I'm not spending my time every day just worried about money and status and whether my toys are better than your toys, whether my things are better than your things, all that kind of stuff. And maybe I read too many books, so that's stupid. What kind of an asshole do I think I am, being curious about stuff? What a jerk. He thinks he's so smart and that kind of thing. And you start to wonder, is it worth it, right? Maybe ignorance is bliss. Maybe you unleash the Zen in you and, sit under a tree and just forget about it, suffering, You go from wannabe Siddhartha prince to poor, minimal, surviving monk kind of thing. In a way, I'm like that anyway, but not really. But anyway, I don't need that much stuff. I don't need so much to be happy or anything like that. A bicycle ride is good. A walk is good. Going to another town to walk around is good. Having a conversation with a friend is good enough for me. But anyway, it's chronic stress, and chronic stress is not good for you. And confusion and self-doubt is not good for you. And dependence, that's another one. Isolation and deprivation increase reliance on the manipulator for basic needs and emotional support. So what they're telling you is you need me. I alone can fix it. We're going to make you rich. We're going to solve these problems, fraud and abuse and all that. We're going to make things more efficient. We're going to sort shit out with our technology. You don't have to worry about a damn thing. And, you become dependent. I want to leave my husband, but I can't because he owns the house and the car. I've had 2 kids with him. I don't have enough money to break away. Who would I go to for help? And so on and so forth. And you're captive. and little badass Bobby can abuse you till the end of days, and that you feel helpless, nothing you can do about it. And in a way, that's what they're doing. You know, we're helpless under the yoke, the threat of China taking over Taiwan. Who cares? I've lived in Taiwan and China. I've worked in business with Taiwanese and Chinese people for many, many years. And why would China want to invade Taiwan? You get 20 million more people out of 1.3 to 4 billion people already in China. You get crumbling infrastructure. You know, you just have another burden to take care of. The Taiwanese are taking care of themselves quite well right now. Just let them do it. Everyone knows the one China policy. The borders are open in terms of business, unless America gets in the way. If America blockades Taiwan, that's a threat. That's a real threat to China and Taiwan. And that's America's fault, not Chinese fault. They're not going to invade Taiwan. There's no point in it. There's nothing to be gained. But the narrative in Washington is going to be they're out to get us. The commies are under your bed and they're coming for you. And it's just bullshit. And I can't stand it that so many people buy into that crap. It's unfortunate, and you should really learn a little bit more about how business works over there. We tend to not pay any attention to things that we're not being fed or taught. You know, somebody tells you to read this or that. What are they leaving out of that book list? You know, you have one perspective and another perspective. What perspectives are you not capable of seeing or not seeing? So learned helplessness is a huge thing. So repeated negative experience where the actions seem to have no positive impact can lead to a sense of powerlessness. So at the end of the day, you feel powerless. You know, I'm powerless. I can't do anything about it. People say climate change. Well, what can I do about it? I can't do anything about it. You know, you feel powerless. So you're on Facebook. You want to have your friends go to another platform and share pictures and articles and stuff. But you can't because all your friends are on Facebook. So you're powerless. I'm powerless. I can't really do anything about it. So I'm just going to continue with the herd and whatever. These things are being done to you day in and day out, and you are vulnerable to it. So please become aware of it and be careful. So I'll make a little piece with these notes on my blog, and I'll share it in the show notes. Please like and subscribe and share this video with friends if you think anything that I've said is interesting or helpful. Next is going to be rebuilding on the manipulator's terms. So once they've broken you down, how do they turn you into cannon fodder? Okay, thanks a lot for listening. I'll talk to you again soon. Take good care. Have a nice rest of the week. Buliam T. Out.